Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of This Week in IP&O. We, of course, as always, live from the table in my kitchen. We have a very special guest. We have Captain Matt Gulsby from RUPD. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thanks, so a few weeks ago, we got a crime alert about there being a bear on campus, and for people to be alert. Now, I've gone to school here from 2011 to 2015, and I've worked here for 4 years. I don't think I've ever seen that kind of crime alert. Maybe I haven't, I just didn't remember. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh man, I have to talk to the person that is like the point guy on this. So I was asking everyone who it was, and everyone, it kept pointing back to you. They were like, Matt Gulsby's the guy you want to talk to. So in a situation like that, there's a bear that's on campus in New Brunswick. What's like the protocol? What do you specifically have to do once that happens?
Well, after I kind of confirm a what, you kind of double take, because it's not common to see in this area. Normally we'll send somebody out to try to get a confirmation. But in this particular case, we had some pretty reliable sources indicate that the bear had been seen out by the log cabin area originally, by the Rutgers Gardens. So that was pretty good for us. We then reached out to some resources to kind of get an idea of what our next move should be. And then we went ahead and sent out the alert advising our community of the bear being in the area. So again, not very common. I could think in the 28 years that I've been here, we've only had 3 instances of having a bear close enough to campus to trigger somewhat of a warning, but only 2 that have actually caused us to send out an alert. And that was obviously the bear that we just most recently had. And a few years prior, we actually had a bear over on the Livingston campus in the quad area. So those are the 2. But normally, like I said, we try to confirm it before we go ahead and send the alert out. And then we try to gather some information to send out to the community, so that we're not just sending something out, we're giving them some information that they could use and some details.
So Matt, in New Brunswick, we have the RUPD, and we also have the New Brunswick Police Department and Piscataway Police Department. I'm curious, how do you guys sort of manage the boundaries as to what each one is going to respond to?
The boundaries are fairly well established, and you also have to remember, over in those particular areas, the Rutgers Gardens is for a good portion of it is actually in North Brunswick. And then we have the waterway that runs along the border with East Brunswick and Milltown. So we have a lot of borders over there, and over the years we've established relationships that kind of allow us to share information so that we can kind of get an idea as to sending the communications out. I think anybody that follows New Brunswick Police Department on their Nixle account saw that they sent the information out about the bear as well. So we try to communicate and coordinate and get the information out. But again, mostly it's over years of just coordination and knowing the people on the other end.
So I'm assuming that applies not for just bears. This is also for the everyday things that go on campus when a call comes in.
Yeah, there's a fairly regular information sharing between the agencies as it relates to incidents on and around campus.
Great.
Are there any interesting stories you'd be able to share with us?
What happens a lot of times is the stories that I don't think are interesting, because we do it on a day-to-day basis, other people find interesting. But I will say that the bear incidents are probably some of the most unique cases that we've had. And we've had the coyote. I think everybody remembers last year We had the incident with the coyote that was over on the Livingston Bush campus area. So those are probably two of the more unique ones that I would say would come to mind as being, things that are truly different from the everyday type of incidents that we deal with.
So once you send out this notification to the campus that there's like a bear running around or a coyote or anything else, what's the next step? Do you have to call animal control, or who's the next person that takes it over from there?
Well, normally, we'll reach out to the state, the Department of Environmental Protection, their Fish and Game, wildlife folks. Again, they have a law enforcement component and an educational component that we actually consulted with as it related to the some of the facts that we put out related in the crime alert that we sent out to the community in the advisory. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll consult with them on, what's our best course of action. And in this particular case, the bear had kind of gone from the Gardens area over to the area of Cobb Road and the Eagleton area. So he was up in a tree there for a little while. So again, we reached out to Fish and Game, and they have a bear response team that came out, and they set like a container trap to try to see if the bear would go into the trap. But after a couple hours, he came down out of the tree and wandered off in another direction. And then the following day, every morning I would check in, and every evening I would check in to see if the bear had moved, because the Fish and Game folks had told us the hours where normally the bears would be more active. So every morning and every evening I would call in and see if anybody else had spotted the bear so that we could update the community. But the bear pretty much stayed in those two areas and finally left the area. Not quite sure where he's gone off to.
There's just like so many questions I have for the bear itself. It's like, how did it even get there? Because I know that there's like some wooded areas around Rutgers, like Livingston and like the Rutgers Gardens. But like when you see like the headline, like bear at Rutgers, you picture him like on College Ave or something. But it's like, how did he even get to that wooded area in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question, because Fish and Game, I think, had tracked this bear. He'd been tagged, so I think he was seen at least once or twice before. I think some time ago he was seen in the Westfield area. And it's kind of funny, because the one morning he had gone from the Log Cabin Gardens area over to Cobb Avenue and George Street area, and we didn't get anybody call about a bear between Route 1 and Route 18. So how did the bear actually get from one side of Route 1 to the other side? So we have no idea. We know we didn't get any phone calls about a bear on Route 1. So we're not quite sure how he made it over without being seen.
Could have been like maybe he took an Uber or something and he just wore like a funny hat. No one realized.
I thought for sure we would have gotten a couple more phone calls, but we got nothing. He managed to get from the area of Cobb Avenue over to the Gardens without anybody seeing this probably 300-pound bear.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, thank you for telling us about how those kind of situations are handled, and thank you for coming on and sharing that with us. And as we always do, if there's anything else you'd like to say, we'll give you the last word.
No, I think that's it. Again, thanks for the opportunity to kind of come and explain a little bit of what we do, and look forward to hopefully some more down the road.
Sounds good. All right, thanks.
Thank you.